With the playoff picture all but set, we sweep through the jungle and start to get you set for what's on the horizon. A new team steps up at the power rankings, and as the Founders approaches, we take a look at what's going on around the country. That's all now on the Junior Beast podcast.
Welcome back to the Junior Beast podcast. My name is Keenan, as always, joined by my co-host Muhammad, bringing you all of the Junior B Tier 1 action from across the RMLL. And we're coming up to playoffs now. We're now in the final week of the regular season. Everything's kind of already set. I think I was anticipating there to be a few more closer battles coming into week 12, but I'm not disappointed by any means. It was a damn good season all around and some close races throughout the season.
Yeah, and, the playoff picture is all but set in stone at this point, but, it's nice to see some of these teams that are not necessarily inside of the playoff picture right now. Some of them are really finishing out the season, even though it might not be showing up in the win column. They're still giving an honest effort, and I think we're all ready for the playoffs to hit.
Absolutely. And I know that this past week was, it seemed like it was a bit quieter over this past week for games. I don't know if that's just me, though.
Yeah, there's still a good number of games, but I think a lot of the juice has been taken out of it just because everything, like I said, the standings are pretty set. We know what matchups are about to take place, and it's just a matter of playing out the string and trying to stay sharp for a lot of these teams.
For sure.
So with that said, let's move in to the score recaps. Friday, we had a trio of games. The Kings would take down the Warriors 16-6. They really controlled that game throughout, did that game inside Bill Hunter, and there really wasn't much breathing room given to the Warriors. They started scoring really right off the bat and sort of held a 8 to 9, 10 goal lead throughout the game. Also on Friday night, the Mavericks would blow out the Rampage 16-2. And as we know, the Rampage sort of playing out the string, already having moved out as well, and a little bit shorthanded. And then the Marauders would get a rivalry win over the Mountaineers also on Friday night by a score of 10-8. And that's going to go a long way in solidifying second place in the South and home floor advantage in their first round meeting with the Mountaineers. Keenan, anything to add here on the Friday night slate?
Yeah, I don't know if I have like a whole lot, but I do, want to kind of touch on that Marauders and where is it? Sorry. Why am I I am just losing my mind already this afternoon. That Marauders Mounties game, that 10-8 final in Okotoks. Good job to the Marauders, for coming into that game. And you got to think like they were going into that game knowing, okay, this is going to be the game that determines who gets that home floor advantage, because they knew that they were going to meet each other in round one. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We could easily see that probably about halfway through the season once the Shamrocks were essentially undefeated at that point. So yeah, kudos to the Marauders for swinging the momentum their way, heading down into the final weekend, and now, they just have to close off a final game. I believe it's the Warriors that they play this weekend, if I'm not mistaken, in Okotoks. So, the Marauders have the momentum their way against Mountaineers, and I'm curious to see how the Mountaineers come back once next week hits and round one hits.
Yeah, no, that should be an interesting series in the South for the right to play the Shamrocks. Now let's move to Saturday, where the Silvertips would take down the CROW at home by a score of 16-9. The Silvertips just really filled the net in this game, led throughout, got up right away, and just never really relented. Josh Fodchuk would have a huge game on the score sheet once again for the CROW. The Kings would take down the Rebels in a bit of a surprise. Not necessarily that they won the game, although they are the first team to beat the Rebels inside of the Dow, or I guess this game was at the Jubilee. So maybe the switch of venue hurt the Rebels. I don't know, but they did take their first home loss, 10-4. That the score was more surprising to me than the outcome. I don't know if I would have envisioned the Kings winning that game by 6, but they did so. And also on Saturday, the Blizzard would drop one at home, surprisingly, to the SWAT 7-6. And in a game that I heard was quite the show between the Shamrocks and the Chill, as the Shamrocks played their opener inside the Seven Chiefs sports complex. They beat the Chill 14-9 in a game that they got up early. The Chill came back, and then the Shamrocks took over later in the game to get a big win over their crosstown rivals. That was the Saturday slate. Keenan, what thoughts do you have for those slated games?
Yeah, so I think the only real game that I really want to touch on here, I mean, outside of, the Shamrocks and the Chill putting on kind of a offensive showcase, I mean, that's great to see the Chill just, kind of going pound for pound with the Shamrocks. But the big one that surprised me, I think, was, as you mentioned, the Kings and Rebels. And if you told me that the Rebels, like you said, were going to lose by 6 in this game, I would tell you that you're full of crap, quite honestly. And like I can't remember if it was last week that I mentioned it or the week before about, the Rebels moving over from the Dow back into the Jubilee for the first time in years. I don't know how much it really affected them. Yes, they lose this game in their first game back in the Jube in what now, 3 years, I want to say it is now.
Two.
2 years. So, like it just surprises me that the Rebels, went this long, I guess, without a loss outside of Manitoba, right? But I'm also not surprised that it was Regina that were the ones to beat them. Again, I just think the Rebels have a lot more offensive firepower than, than that final box score lets on against the Kings. And, I mean, at this rate, if the Kings can beat the Blizzard in the playoffs of the East, I am stoked to see how the Kings and Rebels match up in the playoffs once, the Rebels will have a few games under their belt in the Jubilee once again, and, they're firing back on all cylinders again.
Yeah, the Rebels' breakdown of their season is pretty interesting when you look at it. They're 10-0 against the North, 4-0 against the Central. All 4 of those games were at home, but they're 0-4 against the East. So all 4 of their losses this year have come against the Eastern Division. The 3 to the Blizzard and the 1 now to the Kings. So it's a bit interesting when you break it down like that. Still haven't lost to a team inside of Alberta, and we'll see. Obviously that will bode well for them come playoff time, and we'll see where they go from here. But yeah, a bit of a surprising result there. Just again, not necessarily that the Kings won the game, just the fact that they won by 6 goals there.
Yeah.
Now let's flip to Sunday, where the Outlaws would take care of business by winning 9-6 at home over the Warriors. They just sort of did enough to stay ahead by 2 or 3 all game. It wasn't an overly impressive game by any means, but they were able to get the win, and already they had solidified that final playoff spot in the North with their win last Friday against the Warriors. But continuing along the right path there, getting the win over a division rival. They took the game 9-6. Nothing to say here. The Silvertips just ran over the Rampage 3-1 or 13-1, excuse me. The Rampage take their second consecutive blowout defeat of the weekend, and like I said, it's clear that they're just sort of waiting for the season to end there in Red Deer. The Blizzard would get back at the SWAT after dropping the first one at home to the SWAT. Actually, no, that was they were in Saskatoon, so they dropped that first one on the road. But they would get the second game by a score of 11-5. They are getting ready, obviously, for their Eastern final with the Kings. The Mavericks would hold on after a 4-0 first period to defeat the Mountaineers 6-5. I heard big-time shooter Hayden Sutherland went down with an injury in this game. It was a non-contact knee injury. It could be long-term, so hopefully he's all right. That would be a big loss for the Mavericks. They escape with the win, another 1-goal win for them. The Shamrocks would win by scoring an identical 14-9 win over the Marauders. Of course, they beat the Chill the day prior by the same score. They continue to roll. And lastly, and I want to talk a little bit about this game, is the CROW and Kings went at it, and the Kings would win the game 14-7, but not so fast, as it was deemed they used an illegal female player, and she wasn't carded correctly, from what I understand. And that would result in a default win for the CROW. So the Kings win the game by 7, but lose it in the end. Just a very strange situation there happening at Jerome McGinley Arena on Sunday, early Sunday afternoon. I don't know what your take on that is, Keenan, but feel free to have at it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting that, a team from out east comes over and, somehow is using an illegal player in only one of their games over the course of the weekend out here. So I think that kind of surprised me a bit. But here's another thing. Can you just explain what the wasn't carded correctly thing is, just in case somebody that's listening doesn't quite understand what that is?
So it can mean a few different things. Like sometimes with APs, they're not properly, like they either haven't been recorded correctly on the game sheet that they're an AP, or they haven't gotten proper permission or been granted permission from their team they're APing with, or they're from a team that they can't be APing from. In this situation, it might have been that they needed to have her on the protected list to be able to dress her. So like every team has a set of like 50 players. It's 40 to 50 players. I don't know what it is right now in Junior B, but I believe it's 50. Could be less. But you have a set of 50 players that are protected by your organization, and to dress, they have to be on there. So unless they're, of course, an AP. So it could be that. There's a number of different things that could go on, but that, from what I would gather from the situation, that's sort of what went on there.
So in a situation like this, where the Kings come out west and play a series of games, and this is the only game where that happens, what do you think the most likely scenario is there, that they only had one of the default wins? Like somebody went down in one of the other games or wasn't feeling good enough to play or something like that, and that's kind of why only one of them. I'm more so confused why only the game against the CROW is being a default win. Like, I know obviously she only played the one game, but why would she have only played the one game?
I think that's why, is because she dressed for the one game, and I don't know. Like, I don't know if they had injuries or if they just figured, well, we're 2-0 on the trip, and this is a game that we feel like we can win. Regardless of, we want to put this player in. Like, I don't know. Like, it seems like something they wanted to do, like dress her for this game. I don't know why. I don't know who she is. Like, I can't really give you any insight on that, because I have no idea who she is or what the situation was, but I'm guessing they just wanted to dress her for whatever reason. Yeah, it backfired.
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation for the Kings, but you've only got 2 losses on the year, including this one. So I guess how bad really is it in the grand scheme of things, right?
And I know Doken did tell me that he told the commissioner he didn't want the win. But the idea was, well, a rule's a rule, and the commissioner said that he was gonna withhold it. So that was the tail of the tape there. The Kings win the game by 7, but like I said, in the end, would walk away from St. Albert with the loss. And there was one more game to talk about this past, I guess took place this week, but we'll include it in the Week 12 cards. The Chill and Mountaineers played, and the Chill came away with a 7-3 win. The Chill defense showing up here and shutting down the Mountaineers. The Mountaineers didn't get their third goal until late in the game. This looked like a game that the Chill just sort of smothered them, got up early, and then rode that lead the rest of the way. And they're kind of locked. The Chill are locked into the 3 seed in the Central. They're going to be starting the series, or their playoffs, in Rocky View against the Silvertips. So until then, they're just sort of trying to stay sharp. And the Mountaineers know they're going to be playing the Marauders, likely starting in Okotoks. So 2 teams that are going to go on the road to start the playoffs. And the Chill coming out with the win. That would wrap up the week. I don't know if you have anything to add there, Keenan, on Chill Mountaineers, but if you don't, we can move on.
No, I have nothing there. And Just to touch on your point that you said just a couple seconds ago, the Marauders definitely have home floor advantage. When I was looking, the Marauders have the season series over the Mounties.
Right. Okay. I thought so. So the
Yeah.
Marauders will be starting the playoffs in their best of three at home when they take on the Mountaineers. Now, another thing I wanted to get to this week, Keenan, is arena availability. And you look around, and it's not just in Alberta, although it's really bad in Alberta because lacrosse seems to be non consequential to the city. But, the playoffs are starting, and we have all these teams having to find new arenas, which makes a difference. Like, nobody wants to be moving venues to play their most important games of the season. It's obnoxious, it's annoying, it's not good for the players. It's a lot of times these newer these arenas that they're moving into have worse sight lines. They're not ideal for lacrosse. And look no further than the minors, the junior A minors and the senior B minors, I would imagine, are going over to play in Meadows. And I've never been to this facility. I barely knew it existed.
Now I need to
It's like
Google
on
this while you're talking about
the
it.
17th Street, I believe. I've tried to get a gauge of what it looks like inside through pictures. I can't really get a real good feel for it, but Bill Hunter is by far the best arena in the province for lacrosse, and they're losing it. Surprise, surprise! I imagine they're putting ice in. I know they're putting ice in, and I'm just tired of lacrosse taking a back seat to everything. Summer hockey, spring hockey, really things that really don't matter a whole lot in the grand scheme of things. And lacrosse, a great sport, just gets treated like it's nothing yet again. And it's not just in Alberta. I mean, beaches in Ontario, the junior A teams getting punted out of Ted Reeve for ice be putting in to be put in. I know it's not ice because the Raiders, I do believe, are getting back Max Bell for the Alberta final, but they're starting their series against the SWAT at their home games anyway. Are going to be out of Stupapard, the Mountaineers' home arena. So like it's kind of all over the place, and it's brutal. Like it's unacceptable. And until this changes, like these are the types of things that hold lacrosse back, and it's unacceptable.
Yeah, so I'm just looking at the Meadows right now, just for your reference. Service Place, you know how the stands kind of are for the field houses there? That's kind of what the seating arrangement is like for Meadows Rec Center.
Oh, so it's bucket seats then?
Well, no, like kind of the placement where like all of the like what are they called? The dressing rooms are kind of below all the seats, right? And the seats
Okay.
are kind of like elevated a little bit. It doesn't look horrible, but it also, not ideal for lacrosse for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know what streams are going to look like out of there or anything like that, but and then I know the Crude are being punted out of Jerome McGinley too. They're going to be playing their playoff games in service. So I I don't know, man. It's just brutal. Like there's no other term for just it's pathetic. It's just trash, and I it's really disappointing. I thought by now that there might be a little bit of a change, and it's like mid July. Like what are we doing here? Lacrosse season is like getting to the good part right now, and teams are having to leave their arenas. Like look at the Miners Junior A team. They've played 8 home games all season, and that's it. Bill Hunter's no more. They're putting ice in, and they don't even get to use it for their short playoff run. In the grand scheme of things, it's short, right? It's really another month, and that's it. So,
If even.
um, it's brutal. It's just terrible, and I don't know. There's really no other way to put it. So I wanted to bring that up, and as the sport, if we hope for the sport to grow and get back to having better numbers and getting more kids playing and things like that, that's something that needs to change. They have to stop putting ice in these buildings during lacrosse season. Another thing I wanted to just mention here quickly, Keenan, is schedule wise. Please, please, please don't schedule these junior B games at the same time as these junior A games. I it's there's so few of them to begin with, overlapping them and basically taking away the ability to watch these games and take them in. Um, by putting them at the same time. There's plenty of time to put them on at different times, different nights. So I implore the league not to do that. There's a lot of different ways you can do it, especially these first round series and junior B are all regional. So there's no reason they can't be played on like Wednesday and Friday while the junior A's are playing on Saturday and Sunday. So there you go, right there. I solved a lot of issues right there. So I really hope that's the case. That the schedules have not been put out for junior B yet, but I wanted to make mention of that. I know there's a lot that would agree with me. I don't know how you feel about that, Keenan, but there's no reason that it can't be done in a smart manner.
No, I think I agree. Is like over time of working in lacrosse, like I've started to realize like why are we scheduling games to take place at the same time? Like it doesn't make sense. Yeah, I get okay, they're different divisions and they're playing in different buildings. I get it, but also like for what purpose? Like what if we're trying to expand the game and grow the game? These games shouldn't be taking place at the same time. I should be able to catch a junior B game and then afterwards catch a junior A game, or maybe after that I'm going to catch a senior C game, right? So like it shouldn't have to be pick and choose what you watch. I mean, obviously there'll be overlap here and there, but like let's minimize that overlap as much as we can. Is it ideal? Okay, maybe not, but also like can these divisions start communicating a little more? Because like maybe that's where that breakdown is. I don't know, but that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, and buildings and fans are a big part of the experience. You want people in the building,
Yeah.
and you can't have that when you have games being played at the same time. So, yeah, I just I hope for the love of God that they schedule these games in decent time slots and get rid of these freaking 1 o'clock Sunday starts and things like that. So let's hope. We can all we can do is hope and at least put it out there and hope someone's listening. Um, Now with that, I wanted to take a quick wrap around the country because the Founders Cup, Keenan, is in Calgary this year, and I think we should point out what's going on around Junior B right now in BC. They're done their quarterfinals already. The Coquitlam Adnax would go down 1-0. It's only a best of three in the first round. They would go down 1-0 in their series before taking the next two from Nanaimo by scores of 10-3 and 9-3. There wasn't really a close game in this series. Nanaimo won the first game 14-7, and then the Adnax would get the next two at home and take them 10-3 and 9-3. So they advanced to take on Victoria in the semifinal. And then in the other first round series, the New Westminster Salmon Bellies would take down the Poco Saints 2-0 by winning a pair of games by identical 2-goal spreads, 6-4 and 5-3. They'll move on to take on Langley in the other BC semi. So that's Victoria against Coquitlam and Langley against New West in BC. And now as we flip over to Ontario, I'll let you know that they are in their quarterfinals. Means the final 8 teams in Ontario are left standing. They've already gone through a full round, and they're in the middle of the second round. And I can tell you that the Green Gales are taking on the Ganawaki Hunters. The Nepean Knights are taking on the Akwesasne Thunder. The Elora Hawks, the defending Founders Cup champions, are taking on Six Nations. And St. Catharines is taking on Orangeville. So some perennial powers left in Ontario. Those are your final 8 teams there. And just taking a quick look here, I mean, the way they display it on the site is terrible. I can't quickly pull up. Like Laura last night beat Six Nations 23-9.
Jeez.
That's your defending Founders Cup champion.
Wow.
Akwesasne beat Nepean 9-8. So it looks like Alora's up. Actually, Alora's already swept Six Nations 3-0. And Nepean is up. Or excuse me, I'm actually having to go game by game and count here. It
It's too
looks
bad that
like,
they don't have it like listed nice and neatly
yeah, I
anywhere.
know. Like
Like,
the
what are we
BC
doing?
League had it in a bracket form, which was great. This is terrible. It looks like Akwesasne is up 2-1 on the Nepean. And yeah, it's St. Catharines and Orangeville are going at it. And it looks like Orangeville is up 2 games to nothing. So they need one more against St. Catharines. It looks like they'll advance. And last series, Green Gales and Ganawagi. 1 Ganawagi, 2 Ganawagi. Looks like Ganawagi's on the verge of sweeping the Green Gales. So right now, it's looking like Alora, who's already advanced, Orangeville, and Ganawagi, who are up 2-0, and Akwesasne was up 2-1. So they're almost in the semis there, but that's sort of your out of province update. There are also is the First Nations Lacrosse League. That site's a little sketchy. I'm not even going to try to give you an update on that right now, but just wanted to update people on what's going on around the country as we get set for the Founders Cup coming up in Calgary this August. Now, before we get to Beast of the Week, for anybody that might be a little bit confused on how the qualifiers are going to work and the playoff system is going to work this year in Alberta, the Shamrocks are already in as hosts, and the Eastern champion or the Eastern teams are already in representing their respective provinces. The Blizzard and the Kings, I'm pretty sure they'll represent. Sometimes they don't go to the Founders, but they get an auto bid because they're the highest level team playing out of their province. The Kings have already qualified because they've beaten the SWAT X amount of times. And that's how they determine that on who represents Saskatchewan as the regular season record between the two. So what's left to determine is the Alberta champion, the RMLL champion, and that's what will take place in Fort Saskatchewan the first weekend of August. And essentially what will happen is it'll be the longest remaining Alberta team, the longest standing Alberta team at the provincials. So if it's Shamrocks Rebels, the Rebels would be in. If it's Shamrocks Silvertips, the Silvertips would be in. If it's Shamrocks Kings, let's say, then it would be the team that lost in the 2-3 game because they would be the longest standing Alberta team. So say
So
the
whichever
Kings,
team lasts the longest from Alberta, that's not named the Shamrocks, essentially.
exactly. So
Yeah.
say the Shamrocks have the bye into the final, and the Kings beat the Silvertips in the semifinal. The Silvertips would be going to the Founders as the RMLL representative. That's essentially how it works. So this year is a little bit more confusing than usual, but I just wanted to point that out to anybody who might be wondering. So if you're in the provincials, you just got to last longer than anybody else not named the Shamrocks and the Eastern champion. Um, and that's if the Shamrocks win the South. I mean, the Shamrocks might not even be there if they don't win the South. We're getting a bit ahead of ourselves, but they are the favorite, and I would expect to see them there, but we'll see. So with that said, Keenan, let's move on to Beast of the Week.
It's a good
And
one this week. It's a good one.
yeah, yeah, and I don't know if we have ever given a Beast of the Week to a Marauder, but that's what we're going to do this week. Ben Erickson, 2 goals, 4 assists versus the Mountaineers, 2 goals, 3 assists against the Shamrocks. This is a guy that's been consistently productive all season long. Wanted to give him a bit of a nod. The Marauders have secured that second spot in the South. A little bit better of a season than I think a lot of people realize. And if they could ever get over their Shamrock bugaboo, they might be dangerous in these playoffs. They're going to have to deal with the Mountaineers first, but Ben Erickson is your Beast of the Week after a big week for him. And the Marauders would go 1-1, dropping 1 to the Shamrocks and beating the Mountaineers. So, Keenan, as we usually do, let's wrap up with power rankings. And I'll go quickly through them this week. A little bit of a change, and a new team has arrived. At number 5, I've got the Mavericks. They're just doing enough to win these games. So many 1- and 2-goal wins. They early in the year they were having to come back a lot. Not as much lately. Doing a bit better job of starting on time. They're at number 5. At number 4, moving firmly into these rankings are the Kings. I know they just dropped a game because of default, but in reality, they won the game on the floor. They went through the North going 3-0 this past week, and they had that big statement win at Fort Saskatchewan, 10-4. They're going to be at number 4. At number 3, I've got the Fort Saskatchewan Rebels. They dropped one spot just because I feel like there's a team playing a little bit better right now, and they're red hot. The Rebels do drop that game at home. Offensively, I'm still a bit concerned about them. They're getting some guys back, which will help. They still are the clear favorite in the North, but for now, I'll have them at 3. At number 2, I've got the Silvertips continuing to surprise. They won a couple of games relatively easily this past weekend. They're at 13-5. They still have an outside shot at stealing the number 1 seed in the Central, but they're going to need the Mavericks to drop one of their last 2, and they're going to have to win their last 2. And I believe one of them might be against the Shamrocks. So not the easiest of paths. They're probably going to be the 2 seed and start the series, or start the first round at home against the Chill. They're at number 2, and then at number 1, as I've said for the last month, easily the Shamrocks. I don't think anybody else has an argument right now to be at 1. They've just gotten better roster-wise, and they've started to really roll on the floor. They'll be at number 1. The Founders hosts top my Week 12 into Week 13 power rankings. Keenan, go ahead.
So mine does look a little bit different. We do have a few similarities in here. I'll start with my honorable mention, and that's going to be the Silvertips. The Silvertips have been playing fairly well as of late. They're looking strong to, like you said, they could potentially take that top spot from the Mavericks. I don't know if that's going to happen, as they do play the Shamrocks in their final game of the regular season on Sunday. So going to be a tough one for the Silvertips, but they do get my honorable mention slot in here. At number 5, I'm going to slot in a team that you did not have on yours in the Okotoks Marauders. I think the Marauders they've lost a couple of games recently. They lost 14-9 to the Shamrocks. They had a recent loss to the to the Mavericks by 2 goals. So sure, maybe they haven't always been in the win column as of late, but they have a big game that they played. I don't even know where I'm looking now. There it is. The big game that they played against the Mounties, which kind of secured them that 2nd seed. So kudos to the Marauders for the way that they've been playing, and even though they do have that loss to the Shamrocks, what was it, a couple days ago? I do think they have the momentum starting to swing their way, and they got one more game to play against the Warriors, since the other one was a default win from the Rockies. At number 4, I'm going to slot the Mavericks in here. A little bit lower than they have been on my power rankings as of late. They have a lot of wins recently. I think their most recent loss outside of the Shamrocks was quite a while before that. To the Chill, and that was back in May. I'm confusing that. I'm confusing their Rebels loss and the Silvertips loss. So, the Mavericks haven't lost a whole lot, and they're coming out on the winning side of these games, and they have been on the winning side of a lot of hotly contested, tight, low-scoring games, high-scoring games, whatnot. I do think the Mavericks have an opportunity to make a run at the Founders once more. I think that's going to come down to how they play the SWAT and the Chill this weekend. At number 3, I also have the Rebels slotted in here, just based on, a bit of what I'm going to call an embarrassing loss to the Kings. The only reason I call it embarrassing is just because it was a 6-goal loss to a team that, maybe they should have been a lot tighter in a game with. I mean, yeah, the Rebels are playing against a lot of guys and have a lot of wins, but also if we do want to touch on the ELO power rankings, which I'm not going to pull them up, but the North Division is technically the weakest division in all of the RMLL based on ELO alone. So I'm hesitant to say that the Rebels are going to go super far. I hope they do for their sake. Just maybe the Kings are exposing them a little bit for what they maybe truly are underneath things. Again, I hope that's not the case, and I hope that was just a bit of a hiccup, but the Rebels do take my number 3 spot. At the number 2 spot, I have the Shamrocks in here. I don't have them at number 1. The Shamrocks are just on cruise control. They have been all season. Just such a dominant team. An absolutely dominant team that I think is going to be hard to make a case for anybody to take out the Shamrocks and, make their way to the Larry Bishop. And at number 1, I have the Regina Queen City Kings, of course, coming fresh off of to the official record books is a 2-1 weekend, but realistically was a 3-0 weekend. A team that's only lost, in technicality, has only lost once all season long. They're just such a force to be reckoned with.
Twice, because they lost to the Mountaineers and they lost to the Shamrocks.
Right, yes, the Shamrocks. Sorry, yes. So a team that's lost only twice this year. I think the Shamrocks will be one hell of a team to take the fight to them if both those teams do end up meeting in the Founders. I think that's going to be like one of the games to watch in the round robin. Nonetheless, Kings looking dominant coming down the stretch. And yeah, they are going to take my top spot in my Week 12 power rankings.
Yeah, it's interesting, Keenan, that you have the Marauders in your power rankings. I think that they're playing better lacrosse, and that's what you want to be doing as the playoffs approach. And I think it's not a bad idea. I just think there's too many teams that are established up there to move them in for me. But good job with those.
You're not going to give me crap for my power rankings this week?
Not really. I mean, well, the Silver Tips, I don't know how you don't have them in. That's the one thing I didn't understand.
They're my honorable mention. It was a tough go between the Tips and the Marauders, so that's why I gave the honorable mention.
Yeah, I know I have the Silver Tips at 2, and maybe some might think that's a little high, but I think they got to be in. I think they have to be at least 4, but we'll see. Plenty of action to come. I want to remind people, you can always reach me, MJ_9 on Twitter /X and m.joma on Instagram. You can also tune in, obviously, every week to this podcast, The Junior Beast, and make sure you're hitting the thumbs up on these games and podcasts. It will just help more people have access to them as we go into the playoffs in the Larry Bishop. We hope to increase our viewership and get more people hooked on the product. The games are only going to get better, and I would expect to see much better lacrosse here as we enter the playoffs. Keenan, let everybody know what's on tap for the final week of the regular season.
So just before I get into that, I do want to say, I forgot to mention it a couple weeks ago, but thank you everyone so much for getting us across the 2,000 subscriber mark on CROW LAX TV. I don't know if you knew that, Mo, that we reached 2,000 subs just a few weeks ago here.
I noticed that. Yeah, that's awesome.
It's a crazy number.
Yeah.
So coming up on Week 12 for the final week of the regular season. So yesterday was the first game of the week. It was a Senior B matchup between the Miners and the Outlaws. The Outlaws would take that game 9-7 over the Miners. Still another 6 games to come starting on Friday. I guess that's tonight by the time you're hearing this.
Oh, Keenan, sorry. That game was 7-5.
7-5, okay. I thought it was 9-7. Yeah. My apologies.
No.
I think I might have seen this score from a different game, and then it just threw me off.
Yeah, no, the Outlaws, actually, for anybody that doesn't know, the Outlaws handed the Miners their first loss of the season, and they actually had leads in the first 3 meetings, either into the third period or late in the second period, and blew them all. And last night, they got over the hump and beat them. So things are
looking up for them.
Things are looking a little interesting in the senior division, and obviously the Miners are still the favorites, but it might be a little bit more of an entertaining senior circuit this year in the playoffs. I'll put it that way.
No kidding. So still another 6 games to come this week to wrap up the regular season, starting with, by, again, the time you're hearing this, it will be Friday morning. So coming up tonight, the Outlaws are going to travel to Fort Saskatchewan for an 8 p.m. matchup against the Rebels. Also happening tonight, 8:30 p.m., the Saskatchewan SWAT are actually coming out west to take on the Rocky View Silver Tips. Again, that game 8:30 live here on CROW. Saturday's going to have 3 games for you. Another special presentation of Tier 2 lacrosse for the Southern Alberta Chaos as they visit the Calgary Axemen. That game 3 p.m. on Saturday. Half an hour later, the CROW and the Beaumont Outlaws are going to play a 3:30 matchup on Saturday as the CROW are going to head into Beaumont looking to swing the momentum their way in their upcoming series in Week 13. And a Senior B matchup to round out the Saturday, 6:30 p.m. as the Fort Saskatchewan Rebels will head to Beaumont to take on the Beaumont Outlaws. So a junior and senior back-to-back there in Beaumont. That's going to be some good lacrosse. Both those games, again, you can catch on CROW. And to round out the entire regular season, what a barn burner of a matchup we're going to get as the Fort Saskatchewan Rebels, the number 1 seed in the North, going to take on the St. Albert CROW, the number 2 seed in the North. That game Sunday, 3 p.m. I know I'm going to be tuned into that one because that one's going to be a damn good game to finish off the regular season.
Yeah, Keenan, we're getting to the good part of the season here. There's been a lot of sort of lackluster games overall this year, and I would implore people not to get discouraged. I would expect things to pick up here, and the playoffs should provide a lot of entertainment. So looking forward to it as these teams try to pave their way to the Founders Cup. And again, it's being held in Calgary this August. Make sure you're around for that as well.
Yeah, some big round 1 matchups coming up. We'll be covering every single series that is coming up next week on the Junior Beast Pod ahead of what I believe is the game 1s all on Thursday night. So we'll have a bit of an earlier week pod for you for week number 13. Well, for my co-host Muhammad, my name is Keenan. Thank you so much for tuning in to the CROW LAX TV, into the Junior Beast Pod on CROW LAX TV. Be sure to like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell. Be notified every time we go live. All playoffs long. I guess I can't really say all season because we're right near the end of it. So all playoffs long. And you'll be notified every time a new Junior Beast goes live. And we'll have all the playoff coverage for you right here on CROW. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and X at CROW LAX TV. And thank you for tuning in to the Junior Beast.